Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Lefties and other liberals are now trying to outdo each other in seeing who can debase themselves more in allowing mentally ill or even violent criminals and hobos to accost them in public. This is all standard discourse now, I guess, after a Marine veteran and some other bystanders stopped a violent man with more than 40 prior arrests and an active warrant on a subway in New York City from aggressively harassing other passengers. The 30-year-old tragically died in the encounter, but that's a failure of frayed family ties and institutions to protect those like Jordan Neely, who never recovered from his stepfather murdering his mother back in 2007 and who reportedly suffered from schizophrenia, PTSD, and depression, according to an aunt. It's never compassionate to keep people like that on the streets where they are a danger to themselves and to others. Where's our Christian compassion and dignity? One of his most recent attacks took place back in November of 2021, in which Neely punched a 67-year-old woman, breaking her nose and fracturing her skull at the orbital bone, which got him locked up at Rikers until February of this year. But now liberals like Emma Vigilant or whatever on the Majority Report podcast wants you to know that she's been hit by crazy hobos on the subway too, and that we shouldn't do anything about it either because she didn't. It's a weird new twist on the victim culture in which someone can say, I was accosted too, so you're not allowed to defend yourself because I didn't. Well, tell that to all the murder victims at the hands of the crazies you so compassionately allow to rot in the streets. Jeff Schellenberger, managing editor at Compact Magazine, notes how commentary like this is class signaling. He explains that caring about public safety and order is seen by the regime as being low status, while being ostentatiously in your face about being completely unconcerned with the streets of major cities, looking like the set of an apocalypse movie, is now the way to differentiate yourself from the petty bourgeoisie into a higher class. It's sick. Did you know that the great 19th century Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote about a similar phenomenon all the way back in 1866? He wrote, quote, "It began with the socialist doctrine. You know their doctrine. Crime is a protest against social organization and nothing more. Nothing. No other causes admitted. Everything with them is the influence of the environment, from which it follows that if society is normally organized, crime will instantly cease to exist, since there will be nothing to protest against and all men will become righteous in an instant. Human nature is not taken into account. It is excluded. It's not supposed to exist." End quote. Liberalism slips into this too, whereas the socialists will say that if you fix society, you fix man as if good and evil don't exist. Liberalism says that man is rational at heart and if given the right freedoms, will choose more or less what's best for him. But that completely ignores the fact that man is born with original sin and lives in a fallen world, and many men choose not to fight against that, to discipline themselves and to school themselves in virtue. In a just society, law should be a teacher of righteousness, a guide, order toward the Christian conception of the good. But as Deacon Harrison Garlick from Tulsa, Oklahoma explains, quote, "Almost everything in our culture is designed to mire the soul in a stupor, a gluttonous filling of our lower appetites that makes us heavy and sluggish of soul. In contrast, the soul is light and like fire, desires to move upward, to ascend to what is good and beautiful." End quote. The fact that our culture keeps souls admired in their sin, slaves to vice and their worst instincts, is part of why our streets are in chaos, and our elites can only virtue signal because they don't want to actually be virtuous themselves either. And this extends into other areas of life as well. The recent controversy with Barstool Sports, in which big personality Ben Mintz was fired by Barstool's parent company for rapping the N-word during a song, provides a good segue for that. Because Barstool Sports has to do with sports betting. As Ryan P. Williams, the president of the Claremont Institute, argues, quote, "Sports gambling is a bad, corrupting, and growing influence in America. Same with gambling in general, lotteries, Vegas, etc. A major piece of the industry's business model is manipulating and shadow expropriating poor and working class Americans." End quote. He then exhorts Barstool founder Dave Portnoy to take this opportunity to use his talents for more wholesome ventures. We were supposed to have Ryan on to discuss how the law can be a guide and a teacher in the tradition of Moses, a type or prefigurement of Christ, the ultimate lawgiver. You know how the West used to base its laws, which weren't even usually written down because they were just understood by the people and enforced through social praise or castigating, not by government.